Oh, that okay. Sorry, I'm a little bit thrown off because I didn't have the faded transition like I normally do there, so I gotta fix that later. So welcome to another live stream. Thanks for joining. This was going to be an interesting one. So this is not typically what I do, but I thought it'd be fun, and it's been one I've been wanting to do for a while, and it's kind of a good excuse because am doing some other little graphic design efforts for my own blog posts and stuff. But yeah, so just a little bit of background on this blog post, or not blog post. We're a live stream today, not a blog post. Because a lot of people don't know this, before I started on the path to becoming a machine learning engineer, so I started on this path of becoming a machine learning engineer probably like 2018. And then I became a machine learning engineer right at the start of 2020, and have been in the role since. Before that, probably like 2015, 2016-ish, I thought I really wanted to be a graphic designer. And so I actually and for some of you who have been following any of my blogs for any amount of time, I've been blogging for over 5 years now, which is kind of baffling to think about, is you'll know that I actually started off blogging mostly about graphic design. And so, oh dang it, I wanted to pull up my portfolio of work just to kind of show some of that stuff. And so I didn't do any formal classes per se. I did... Actually, the way I originally learned was I found this YouTube series of 100 videos, and they were all like 8 minutes in length, so nothing too drastic. And I just watched those and like binge those in like a 48-hour time period one time, and that's how I did most of my learning. And so as I continued so at the time I was still working as like a business analyst, business architect within State Farm. So I wanted to do something on the side with this. With graphic design, and I started to do that for a little bit, and so I had one or two like what I call successes, and then like a lot of fails, and so ultimately the reason I chose not to pursue graphic design as a full-time position is, well, two reasons. Number one, it takes a lot of time, and number two is it is obviously graphic art, and art is very subjective around what people like or don't like. So I would spend hours at a time creating like this really nice looking logo for somebody, and then like they'd like basically crap on it. But the thing that was frustrating in working in the graphic design field is that you'll get people that think that they know what they want. So here's what would often happen is I would develop a logo of what I thought was good for them. Then they would come back and say what they thought they wanted. And what ended up happening is after they crapped on mine and then I did theirs, they ended up coming back with a revitalized version of mine, because then they realized that the idea that they had for their own was not very good. And so but again, this is all super subjective. And then you have the advent of things like Fiverr coming along. So Fiverr is this website, I think it's Fiverr, where you can like have people bid on graphic design jobs at like extremely low prices, and therefore it's unfortunately created the stigma for actual graphic designers that like if you want a legit logo, that you can get away with paying $10 for a graphic designer for a legit logo, and that's kind of ridiculous. Like, quite frankly, like if you want a professional logo, you have to be willing to shell out some money for that, and you can't go expecting Fiverr prices. So I got tired of dealing with that whole business, and plus I actually have more of a interest in leaning toward computer science in general. Anyway, I mentioned in a previous stream that I'm big on consumer electronics. I like playing video games. I love computers. I love watching YouTube channels about computer electronics and stuff. So the whole machine learning kind of thing worked out. And then I got to stick with State Farm with machine learning anyway. So that it all worked out in the end. But the good news is that the graphic design skills that I have developed as part of that former journey have helped with like my blogs and stuff. So I'm trying to think. So I create like the diagrams as part of my blogs. Like anytime you see like so like actually right now in this live stream, so I'm pointing to this little icon down here. This is my personal logo. I created this myself. And so I can do things like that by myself. So I'll be honest. So if I were to rank myself skills, or my skill level 0 to 10, 10 being the best, 0 being the worst, I'm probably a 4. So I'm a little bit worse than average, and I actually used to be better. It's just that I don't, because this isn't my day job. I don't maintain this skill set super well. But the basic stuff, so like flat iconography, anything for my blogs, I'll always do myself. So That's what I thought I'd share today. Is I wanted to share some of the lingo with you specifically around the graphic design space, because a lot, if you typically watch these streams and you are a coder, you will know that 80% of your job is knowing the right things to Google, and that is very much the case with graphic design. And that was the thing that I struggled with the most when I first got started. Is I would just not know. I would want to do something and I just would not know what to Google. So that's what this live stream is here to do. It's to provide you a vocabulary for some of the things you can do, ideas of how to get your feet wet in the space, and then also I'm going to be recommending some additional materials beyond just myself if you really want to take your graphic design journey a little more seriously. And in fact, some of the things I was looking at myself, I'm actually interested in taking some of these classes again. Okay, so we are going to be working with a software today called Affinity Designer. So in the graphic design industry, there are two major softwares that people use. Number one, by far, I think, is Adobe Illustrator. And then number two is Affinity Designer. I don't even know if there's a number three. I've never heard of anything beyond those two. So actually, when I personally got started, I started off on Adobe Illustrator. And just being very candid with you, the features supported by Affinity Designer versus Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator definitely does more. So Adobe, their whole creative suite. So you might not be familiar with Illustrator, but you're probably familiar with Photoshop. That whole creative suite's been around for decades, and I don't know how long Affinity has been around for, but definitely not as long. And so you might be wondering, well, why did I move over to Affinity Designer? And the number one reason for that is cost. Cost, and then also feature set of Affinity Designer. So cost I don't know what it is for Adobe Illustrator anymore. When I was doing it, it was part of this subscription service called the Adobe Creative Cloud, and I want to say it was either $20 or $50 a month. So that is not one. You don't pay one flat fee. You pay it per month in perpetuity, and if you stop, then you lose access to the service. So, and as a non-professional graphic designer, I was just thinking, I'm sinking a lot. Like after I kind of gave up on doing the whole I'm doing graphic design full time kind of thing, I was sinking a lot of money into Adobe Illustrator. I was like, come on, there's got to be a cheaper option. And so along comes Affinity Designer, and so Affinity Designer, whenever I first heard about it, it was. So, and this is another reason I got into it was, so when I pivoted over to Affinity Designer in 2017, I think, they had an iPad app first before Adobe Illustrator did. And I know I don't have an iPad anymore as of 2 weeks ago, but back then that was a big, big deal for me. And not only was it an iPad app, but it was the legit full set Affinity Designer that you would get on your Mac or your Windows machine or your iPad or anything. And so that was $20 one-time flat fee. That was an absolute no-brainer. And then I think on the Mac it was $40. I think it's now up to $60. But it's, again, a one-time fee. You never have to go paying these subscription prices again. And which is fantastic. That saved me a heck ton of money. And like I said, Adobe Illustrator is more feature-rich. However, I would say those feature-rich things that I am thinking about are more if you are a professional graphic designer. So if you are just now getting started off in the space and you're not sure if you want to continue along this path and you don't want to sink a ton of money, I actually do. So I'll be transparent. I think that Adobe Illustrator does actually have some sort of trial period. So maybe that might be a good trial for you. Or you could just do the one-time payment of Affinity Designer like I did. So enough waffling. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Where's my button? Let me take a sip here of my drink. By the way, this is a Mountain Dew Spark Zero Sugar. It is a new flavor. It is raspberry lemonade. It's really good, although I don't really understand why they waited. Why they're just now launching this, because this is really more of a summer kind of drink. I think it would have done better if it was released in the summer, but anyway. Okay, so this is just my desktop. I'm working off my Mac. So just FYI, because I do have a Windows machine over here now in the form of my Surface, I have found that Affinity Designer for Mac and Windows are basically the same. The user interface, everything is all the same. So I already do have Affinity Designer open up here. And so this is just a blank canvas. I actually don't have any file open here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to File, new, and I'm pretty sure this is the same on Mac. So I'm not going to do anything fancy here. So like, just be aware that if you want to do graphic design for like just like screens, so like just digital, keeping it digital versus like actually having it printed out, whether you have it printed out on paper, poster, t-shirt, those things are, you do have to be mindful of, but I am not going to really talk about that today. So I'm just going to go into this web section. I'm going to grab, I don't know. We'll just do this one here. So what this is going to do is just going to start up a new document for me that we can go ahead and work with. Okay, so this is just a blank canvas. So the way that, oh, by the way, even though Affinity Designer and Adobe Illustrator use like very similar tooling, they actually, I'm going to guess this is for legal reasons, but Affinity Designer uses different terminology for things. And I'm going to do my best to try to remember what the terminology is for Illustrator or Affinity Designer for the same concept. So this is what we call an artboard. And so you can actually have more than one artboard per document. This is why, so graphic design is actually why I prefer to use the Apple Magic Trackpad or any trackpad over a mouse. And that is for this reason of you can do a pinch to zoom a lot easier. So I don't know if you can see that there. I'm just doing a pinch out and a pinch in to zoom in and out. That is a lot easier, in my opinion, than using an actual MacBook. An actual mouse. And so that's what I prefer to use. All right, so this is an artboard. So let's say you want to, and the reason you wanted to use artboards, actually, let me go ahead and show a more of a completed document that I was working on. So I've got a couple of things in here. I was working on it elsewhere. So let me I wanted to find my personal resume because I built my personal resume in Affinity Designer. Okay, so open this up. It's in the iCloud, so it's going to take a second to download here. So we'll open this up. Okay, so you can see, I'll make no qualms. I actually did get inspired by this. I didn't follow this to a T, and I made some alterations here. And so I don't, and that's the other thing you need to be mindful of with graphic design is you want to give credit where credit is due. You don't want to use anything that you're not allowed to use. So that includes fonts. So some fonts are free, some fonts are paid, and yeah. So this is my my personal resume here, and you can see I've got a couple different artboards here. And then the reason we have an artboard here is so whenever I want to go and export this for any reason, then I can export just this artboard and not worry about this stuff over here. And so you can see that I have, and I'm not going to talk about things like layers today, but if you look at over on the right navigation here, how you can see layers. The nice thing about layers is that you can group like things together. It looks like I forgot to group some of this stuff, but I tried grouping so you could see that this is my name card and this is my contact info here. And the nice thing about layers is then you can turn them on and off appropriately. But I don't want to necessarily talk about that today. So layers are a kind of a person's best friend with some of these things. So you can see that I did all so I know Affinity makes another product called Adobe or Affinity Publisher, or I think Publisher. Oh my gosh. So So if you're wondering why I'm laughing and I look that way, is because my office door was open and my wife was standing there trying to mess with me during the stream. So this is, let's go back to this open document here. So this is why you want to do multiple artboards, and we're just going to stick with the one artboard for now. But if you actually let me go ahead and show on the left navigation here, the basic tools of Affinity Designer. So if you do want to create a new artboard, it's right under the main cursor tool, also known as the move tool, and that is this artboard tool, and you can create your own artboard like that. Oh, well, apparently that wasn't. Oh, apparently when it opens, because I don't really open up a new document each time because I just I'll just use like something old. So okay, so I created one artboard here, and then let me go ahead and create another artboard down here just to show you that I can do that. So you saw that I just created one by moving my cursor there, but if I wanted to actually get one of a specific size or the same size, then I just do the insert artboard. And then you can see this one's artboard 1 and then artboard 2. So I usually try to off on the right navigation here, I'll change the name of these. So I'll call this one main, and then this one workspace. So actually let me show you what I do for my blog posts and stuff is I'll usually grab so I'll grab this one here because this is one that I did for the stream the other day. is you can see I've got like 5 artboards here. I got one just for like messing with text. I got one that I use as like a workspace. I got one for a GitHub banner. And I got one for Instagram. So the nice thing here is if I ever want to do another Titanic stream in the future, I have this set up in such a way where I could just alter the text to whatever I want. So this is my next live stream, and then same over here on the right hand side. And so then I can export each of these artboards really quickly. And so it does not take me that much time to turn these things out. And so all these icons down here are ones that I personally created. And so the trick to graphic design in doing things well is really 2 things. Number one, like 2 very simple ideas, alignment and symmetry. So you can see everything here. You can pretty much draw, like with the exception of things on purpose, so you can pretty much draw a horizontal or a vertical line down the middle, and you can have symmetry that way. So you can see here with like the Harry Potter glasses are perfectly symmetrical with the exception of Harry Potter's lightning bolt, which obviously is a little bit off to the edge there. Or this mouse here you can see is perfectly symmetrical. Mailbox, and then my neural network icon here, if you draw a horizontal line, it's symmetrical. So that's really like the big thing about graphic design. If you want something to look nice, is just make sure it's symmetrical. Okay, so let's go back into my new document, and I want to talk about some important but very basic but very important concepts to understand. So back on the right hand side here, I'm just going to grab because there are a couple preset shapes you can create here. So you can see a square, or we'll call this the rectangle tool, the ellipses tool, aka circle tool, the rounded rectangle tool, and then this says trapezoid tool, but actually I don't know if you can see this very well, but there's like a little gray triangle in the corner there. And if I were to click on that, you can see that you can actually do more default shapes. And so I'm going to just create a basic rectangle for now. So basic rectangle. Okay, so a couple things with this rectangle. And actually, I'm going to do this really quick. Okay, so basic rectangle. So you can see here that we've got just a basic shape with these little points on the end here. So some of these are, I mean, this is obviously going to make sense. So this is going to resize your rectangle as you want. Now, if you want to like resize this, but like make it bigger. So I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here. So let's talk about what actually these graphic design software are and why it is and like what we're doing here. So actually, under the hood of all this is we are basically using math to draw these shapes. And so behind the scenes here, we can scale this thing up, scale down. And so you can see what I was going to share here is so right now you can see it's kind of like a 4x3 rectangle here. If I wanted to make this bigger without like changing the ratio to this, then you just hold down the shift key while you're doing the dragging. And so you can see now that I'm resizing up and down from the bottom right hand corner there. And then I think it's is option. I always got to remember. Okay, so holding the command key down on Mac, and I think it's control on Windows, it will resize from the center. And then if you hold both down at the same time, you can see that I am resizing appropriately while keeping the same aspect ratios there. But basically, so because this is all math behind the scenes, you're going to hear a lot of math terminology that I don't think even most graphic designers realize that that's what this is. So this is what we call a vector. So a vector in math is basically like drawing a line in space to represented by numbers. And so the reason we want vectors is, let me go back in here, is, or not this, I'm going to close this out. Don't save. All right, so did I not? Oh, I closed the wrong one out. Don't save. All right, I wanted to open up another one of these here. So back to my Titanic one. Okay, so if I were to grab, I don't know, let's just grab this little rocket ship icon that I created here. I'm going to go paste it over in here. So if you notice here, this is all done in vector space. And so if I resize this is going to look fine. Like it's going to resize fine. If I make it really, really small, actually it looks like I might have messed something up on this particular icon. So let me grab a different icon because you have to, I'll talk about being a little bit careful with some of these things. So let me grab, I know I did this, so this is my Titanic icon here. So my Titanic icon, so you can see I can resize this guy and make it really, really big, and it still looks like a boat, or really, really small, and it's not. Even at this small shape, it's still going to look like a boat. And the reason it still looks like a boat is because because this whole thing is being drawn in vector math, and therefore the math is just basically rescaling these things. So this is what we call a vector as opposed to a raster image. So let me just go online and grab any. Let me grab a picture. Well, let me go to my link. I don't want to go on LinkedIn right now. What do I want to grab? An apple. Apple fruit. I'm just going to want to grab some random image of an apple. How about this one of just like this weird one with teeth? So if I were to copy this image, copy image, this is a raster image. And so the reason we call it a raster image is so you can see here that scaling down, it still looks pretty much the same. But if I were to keep blowing this thing up, then and it's still in my. If I keep blowing this thing up and I were to zoom in more, you can see then things start to get pixelated, and that is because a raster image like this is not being drawn in vector math. So when you try to blow it up like this, the only thing it's doing is saying, okay, I know that this pixel value was this particular color, so I'm just going to make my adjacent pixels be the same color. And the problem with that is when you try to scale it up, then you get this weird like jagginess. So that is the big thing that you want to keep in mind if you want to use other artwork from the internet. Is you do not want raster images because they will not scale. You want vector images, and so vector images are usually stored with the file extension of .svg, and I don't know what SVG stands for. So if you ever want to, and again, just of course be aware that of fair use, copyright, and stuff. But there are websites out there that have plenty of free icons for anybody to use. But just keep in mind that you don't want like a JPEG. So like I think this is probably a JPEG or even a PNG. You don't want either one of those. You want an SVG, or even more so. So Affinity Designer files are saved with a file extension .afdesign, and then I think Adobe Illustrator's is .ai. But most people, if they're creating an icon and put it out there on the internet, it's .svg, and I don't know what SVG. Let's Google that actually. So SVG. I'm going to guess stands for something vector. Yep, scalable vector graphics. So it makes perfect sense why that is named like that. Okay, so all right, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this thing here. So that important. So that was important terminology number one, understanding that these things are called vectors versus raster images. Okay, so now back to our rectangle here. So there are a couple different attributes to this rectangle here that aren't really apparent right away. So right now I have the primary tool that we that kind of defaults everything, called the move tool. And the move tool is called the move tool because it's primarily designed for just moving. You'll notice here that I don't really have a way to like make this corner around it or anything. The only thing that you can really do with the move tool is you can do a rotation. So that you might be wondering, what is this circle up here? So if you notice when I hover my mouse over it, that it turns into like this little curvy kind of arrow, double-ended arrow. So you can see when I drag that, then I can rotate this appropriately, and so you can see that it does it in tenths of a degree. But if you wanted to do like a more defined kind of rotation, and if you hold down the shift key and when you do that, so you can see I'm doing 15 degrees, 30, and then you can do 45 or all the way to 90, and so again, so you can do a lot with that. All right, so by the way, of course, Control Z, Command Z is going to be your best friend, as that is your undo tool. Yeah. Got to take a drink here. So this, let me do something here really quick because I noticed there's no stroke on this. Okay, I just wanted to put a line around this for a reason. So you can see here when I put the line around here that there's a line that's kind of like this blue line that's actually right in the middle of this line. So the way that so the way to describe this is, all right, so we have this shape here, and of course you don't necessarily even need to have a shape, but the shape is defined by like a containerization of what we call a path, and I think it's called a path in Adobe Illustrator, or a curve in Affinity Designer here. So what you can see here, and a curve is not to be confused with a stroke. So you can see the blue line here actually represents a curve. And I know it's not a literal curve because these are straight lines, but that's, and I think you know, so this is not really actually like Adobe Illustrator's nomenclature better, a path. So this is like the kind of the path that you have for a shape. And so in the middle of the shape here, we have filled this color with like a light gray color here. So this is what we call a fill, which probably makes perfect sense to you. So we have a path that is that is totally enclosed, defines a shape, and then within that path is this gray color called a fill. So you might be wondering, well, what about this black line here? Is that the path or the curve? That is not the path or the curve. This actually represents the stroke. And so as you might have seen there is I added a stroke to this, but in my color palette up here, so you can see if it is the open kind of circle here that's not filled represents the color of the curve, or I'm sorry, the color of the stroke for the fill, or the shape, and then the more solid one that I've now selected here represents the color. So you can see here, you can actually change your color using this color wheel. I actually do not prefer to use this method. I use swatches instead. And so the nice thing about swatches is you've got grays, you got different colors, or and this is the main reason that I actually use like one of these as my starting point, is I actually have my personal gray color saved as its own palette. So you can see for everything that I use, and this is kind of like a branding tip, is just consistency. I use a dark gray and then I use a light gray. So you can see here that like this actual wording here is not white. This is actually a light gray, as is everything else. And I guess I don't have this color saved here, but anyway, so back to what this is. Let me take a sip here. And again, I am monitoring the chat on both LinkedIn and YouTube. If you have any questions, so feel free to drop any questions down below if you have any. I need to take another sip. Okay, now, so we talked about path, we talked about stroke, so path slash curve. So again, Affinity Designer refers to these as curves, stroke, fill, and then the most important point is what we call, or what Affinity Designer refers to as nodes, which I honestly don't like that name. And Adobe Illustrator, I like this name better, refers to as anchor points. So you can see right now we are still on the move tool, is this cursor, and there are keyboard shortcuts for everything. So you don't have to memorize these right away. You will, if you do more like I do, you will memorize some of these shortcuts. So V is the cursor tool, and then this is the nodes tool. Or I think it's called anchor selection tool in Affinity Designer. So let me go back to this. So shortcut for this is V, and then shortcut for the node tool is A. So I'm going to watch what happens when I switch from the move tool to the node tool here. So move tool right now node tool. So you'll notice here as part of the shape that there you can still see the path, but now you see these 4 little boxes in each of these corners. And these are the nodes or anchor points for this particular shape. And so the interesting thing about nodes and things like, so this is a straight node, meaning that like, you have one path coming in here straight and then another path coming out of here at a straight. And so you can see I can move this particular node around and kind of just alter the shape this way. And so you can see I can kind of do the same thing over here. So I can move this one over here. I can do this one over here. Oops, sorry about that. And then I can move these things around appropriately to however I want to reshape this particular shape. And so then you can do, so we only have 4 nodes on this path, but as you kind of saw here when I messed up, is if I hover over on another part of this path here, you can, I don't know if you can kind of see that well, like there is a little curvy tool, kind of like whenever I have my mouse on this path here. So if I click here, what this is going to do is it just added another node point on this straight line. But if I were to go move this around, then you can see I can kind of manipulate the shape even further. So as you can imagine, most complex really complex logos and complex images are going to have like hundreds, if not thousands, of these little nodes everywhere. And so obviously this is still a straight node, but let's say I wanted to do something more with a curve. So up in the top toolbar right here, you can see there is a convert. So you can do what right now is the sharp anchor or node tool, or the smooth, and I'm not really sure what smart does, but we'll stick with the smooth. So you can see that now that I've changed it to smooth, it is doing a kind of a symmetrical kind of curve between these two node points here. So I know that's kind of hard to tell, but this is actually kind of symmetrical. So you can see here, we still have our node is now represented by a circular node instead of the square node, or again, anchor point if you are using Adobe Illustrator. And so then you can further manipulate even this kind of curve right here. So you can see what these circles on either end here, because this is basically a tangent kind of line here. This line here is tangent to the curve. So again, more math terms here. You don't have to know the math terms. It's just a kind of a fun fact, given that I work in kind of a mathy kind of field anyway. But let's say, so if I grab one of these handles right here, then I can manipulate the curve or around, or if I move it closer, you can see that, now this part over here, let me make it really clear. So this part over here in between this node and this node is a little more curvy, whereas this one's a little more straight. There is a little gentle kind of a slope there. But yeah, and so you can do lots of different kinds of things with this. And so it is not really common practice to like create a rectangle like this and then actually like manipulate nodes like this. What somebody might do instead, and so well, before I jump into that, what I'm about to do, basically, so these are the biggest things you have to remember in graphic design by far, is understanding what stroke is, understanding what path or curve is in Affinity Designer's case, understanding what nodes and anchor points are, and handles for curved nodes. Like 80% of what you're going to Google involves one of those like different options here. So, and by the way, in case you were curious, you can actually manipulate multiple nodes at once. You just click one and then holding down the shift key, then you can grab another or grab another. And so you can see I've selected 3 nodes here, and now I can move all 3 of these, whereas the other 2 are going to remain fixated in place. So you can see I've kind of made a weird R-shaped thing here. So with this particular curve. And again, so if you come up to the color here, if I select this gray color here and I wanted to change this to a blue, I can do that. Or if I select the fill here, then I can create a fill. Or if you don't want anything at all, so you can see like there's this red little slash through it. So you can see that's just going to say, okay, I want this shape that has no fill, or vice versa. So you can see this arrow tool here is actually going to swap it back and forth. So you can see now there is no stroke, but there is a fill. And then another cool thing you can do, let me put a fill back on this. We'll make it green. So you can see here that the stroke is actually aligned along the middle of like the path here. You can actually alter that. So in this stroke panel up here, you can notice that there are a couple different things that you can do with the stroke. So if you want to make it bigger or smaller, you can do that by resizing that here. If you want to actually align it to the middle, toward the inside of your curve, that's what this alignment here. So changing this to here, you can see, well, this is kind of hard to see because I picked a goofy color. Let me change the color here again, back to, well, I don't know if you can see that, but the curve is actually on the very outside instead of the middle now. Well, let me go ahead and change that back. So by default, it starts in the middle. You can align it to the very outside like that, or you can line it on the inside like that. And then you can also change the bevel, like the cornering bevels here. So you can see by default they kind of curve, but you can make them very sharp. So let me go ahead and illustrate that again. So started off curve, and now you can see that it's now a little bit more sharp. And then this one here in the middle, I don't know. I've never used this one. I don't know who wants that. So lots of different things you can do. There are also ways to do like dotted lines here. So you can see that now I have dotted lines. Now you can see here the caps, where it was one big solid stroke before, like the caps aren't really going to matter. But whenever you have like stroked lines here, you can see that like you actually do see the caps. So the cap here I might change to be dashes or dashes like that. And you can see down here the numbers, you can actually change like the spacing and stuff. So if I can make this like a 4 or a 5 and then make this a 4. And so you can see here that like I've got a dashed line around this object that has like a ratio of 5 to 4 here. So you can see, well, let me make this a little bit more clear. So I gotta have this selected. Keep in mind that if you want to make alterations like this, you have to have your object selected. So you can see here that now I put the dashed line being 5 and then the spaces in between those dash lines being a 3. And if I make them both 5, and gotta have this thing highlighted, then you can see that the dash and the space in between the dashes is perfectly symmetrical. And then again, if I wanted to have this outlined on the inside of the curve, I can do that. On the outside of the curve, I can do that. And so just, lots of little simple things that you can do with these things. So really kind of cool here. Okay, so that is shapes and understanding a lot of the terminology. Now, one very popular tool, and I actually don't use this tool as much as I used to anymore, is called the pen tool. And so what the pen tool is you can actually define your own path without actually like starting from like a rectangle or an object or something. And I'll show you the reason why people like to do this. So let's go grab another kind of random object. What do I want to do? I don't know. The LinkedIn. Well, no, I don't want to do the LinkedIn logo. Random logo. Let's just do a random logo. I want one of okay, so this one's going to do just fine because it's got I wanted one that has some curves because straight lines are a little bit too easy. So I'm going to copy this, copy image, and again, I'm only just doing this for illustrative purposes. I would not go. Just be careful again of fair use. So you can see that this guy is really big. So I'm going to resize it down. And then so another thing, if you want to, excuse me, I got to take a drink. If you want to, if you're good with some object and you want to make sure it's not manipulated, then the way to do that is by highlighting the object and then doing a Control or a Command L, depending on if your Windows or Mac. So you can see here now that you got these little X icons represented here. Is now if I click away from it, you can see, I don't know if you can tell, I'm trying to click it right now and it's not clicking. And you can see off on the right here within this navigation is you can see this little lock icon, and that is basically saying, okay, I can't mess with this object unless you unlock it. So the way to unlock it, obviously coming over here, clicking on that lock icon, and now it is unlocked. Okay, so I'm going to relock this, and the reason I want to relock this is I'm going to select the pen tool to show you what you can do with the pen tool. Okay, so pen tool is off on the right. Shortcut key is the P key for pen, P for pen. And so what some people like to do is you can actually kind of trace things out, like shapes like this, with the pen tool. So you can see I'm going to start my curve off right there because obviously that is the corner. And then you can see I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I want to make a curve that represents this same slopey kind of curve right here. So what I'm going to do, and there's a reason I'm kind of putting it down here, is when I'm going to click and hold. So when I click and hold, you're going to see it's starting to create a curve, and then that's where you can actually take these handles and you can pull it down, and you can see that I kind of made a representative curve there. Now, the unfortunate thing is I got a really thick stroke on this, so let me turn this stroke down so it's a little bit easier to see for myself. So I kind of messed that up. Let me start retry this. Okay, so pen tool. I'm gonna start my thing here. Again, I'm gonna have this zoomed out, and then it's going to create a curve that very much aligns to this other curve. So you can see here that I can kind of do that. I'm not gonna get it perfect. Actually, so I tried to do that in one fell swoop there, and that clearly wasn't working out. Usually what I do is I'll do one node here and then one like about halfway in the middle here, because the nice thing is that like after you create one node, then you can see and I go and so I've lifted up my cursor now. I'm not touching anything, but I still have the pen tool selected, so you can actually see that I can create another point, and it kind of just continues the line on for me. And so you can see that I have now started to create this path. So now if you want to kind of sharpen up this curve, and because if I try to add another point here, it's just going to try to continue the curve as it kind of naturally flows onto. So you can see if I click here, that kind of resets the curve a little bit. So now I can continue along this shape here. And so I'm going to continue along this path here. I'm going to make another gentle kind of curve right here. And again, I want to sharpen this up some, and I'm not doing a great job, and that's because I'm just kind of trying to highlight things. And so whenever I've got this node here and I want to close this tool, you can see whenever I hover over my original node here that it's got like that little circle right beside the pen icon. So if I click that, now this is its own shape. And so just to really illustrate that, I'm going to move this over here, and you can see that this shape is more or less the same as the other shape that we saw over there, except I have got that weird goofy highlighting on there. Oh, that's because it's oddly aligned. Okay, so there you go. So that kind of represents the shape, and then what I can do here is using something like the, is there an eyedropper tool? Yeah, there is an eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool here is then I could take that color, that same color, and basically I have more or less the same shape here. I clearly didn't do a perfect job with that, but you can kind of get the idea. If I were to actually try doing some sort of illustration, because I've done some cool things before with the illustration, so that's what I really wanted to do, is I wanted to show some of that on my Instagram account, because my Instagram account has all this stuff on it. Okay. Let me stop sharing for a second because I do not remember what my Instagram password is. All right, so was that correct? Okay, that was not correct. Was that correct? Okay, that was correct. Update the password. Not now. Okay, let me start sharing my screen again. Sorry, I just didn't want to share my personal info here. Okay, so DK Hundley. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. Okay, so let me scroll through. So clearly these days it's mostly just pictures of me and my daughters because I love my girls. They're so sweet. But back like, so it's going to take me a little bit of scrolling. But I did want to show, because I used to post a lot more of my graphic design artwork to my personal Instagram. I should have created some sort of portfolio website for this stuff, but I guess, yeah, I did not do that. All right, so still scrolling. We're getting close. My daughters are getting younger. That's how I know we're getting close. Oh, this is a trip down memory lane. Okay, you can start to see. So this was for a nonprofit project that I did with this group called 48 and 48. I did their graphic design website for this nonprofit named West Bloomington Revitalization Project. So that was really cool and really fulfilling that I got to use these graphic design skills to help out a nonprofit that way. I know we're getting so close, and I don't remember specifically what I wanted to show here. Okay, so you can see whenever I was selling my last house and I was doing for sale by owner, I actually designed these signs here, so you can see some pretty basic stuff. So I just basically created an H and a basic house icon and put that in there, so that was kind of cool. Although I don't know what that is not my personal cell, that's my dad's cell, so please don't call. I don't know that he would appreciate now that I think about that I have that up there. Okay, so where is I'm struggling to remember what I even wanted to show now. So I was doing this series for a little bit where I would actually go to this random word generator and take two words and try to create a logo around it. So this is one of these that I'm the most proud of is, so you can see that I wanted to talk about tracing. So I took just a banana from the web and I actually traced this banana. And then I did make some alterations for it here, but this was made using the pen tool. So you can see a gentle curve here, another big curve on the other side here. And then you can see that I got some curves up in here, and then I created like these pixelated kind of things to represent, because the word that I got this time was inappropriate fruit. So some of these came out really well. This one came out really well, I thought. I thought it was kind of cool. And so let's look at the circle here, like the foot here. This foot here is actually just a slightly manipulated circle, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you can a lot of graphic design is also finding out common shapes and knowing how to manipulate those common shapes to make other kind of shapes. So this is actually just a basic circle here. And actually, let me see if I can kind of do that. And so we're done with this. We can delete that. Okay. So if I take this circle, basically the way I made this foot, I'm going to keep it red for now because why not? For curves. Is so you can see that I've got a couple of, this is now in the node tool. So I basically grabbed these two nodes here and I just moved them down a little bit. Is that what I did? Oops. And then you can see it kind of makes a little bit of an egg shape. So you can see it's got a little bit of an egg shape now. I'm going to make it a little bit more squatty kind of, and then maybe a little bit wider. So if I hold these two things down. And so basically that was the feet there, is I just replicated that. Basically just took a circle and just manipulated some of the things around that. And so we'll talk a little bit more about manipulating shapes to create other shapes here in a bit. So Here's another one I did for flower garbage. And so a lot of these are what we call flat icons, so there's not really like a 3D kind of texture to them because flat iconography is a lot easier to make. Oh, so here's the specific one I wanted to show. So this is one that and this is actually not very good that I look at in retrospect, but basically I use the pen tool here to get a picture of my daughter when she was a baby to outline the shape of her head and kind of create this graphic here. But there's a lot of asymmetry in here, and so like this is not very good now that I look at this in retrospect. But yeah, and so you can see I wanted to. There was one more that I was really proud of. So that I actually did for actual work. So this is another one that I did called Preference Crew. But okay, so this is my friend CJ. And you can actually see I'm wearing the t-shirt up here. So CJ's a Christian rap artist. He reached out to me and asked if I could help. So this is his album art here. I did not create the album art, but he wanted some t-shirts as merch to kind of sell some stuff. So I created a couple designs for him. And so the album here, so like I mentioned, he's a Christian rap artist. He created this album called The Weight of Words, so you can see at the bottom here. And so what I did here is I grabbed, I wanted this idea of, okay, weight and words. So I grabbed this shape here. This is actually like a 1 ton kind of image. And then I just created a bunch of text, and then I used the same font that he did for his actual album artwork. And then and then actually kind of created this word cloud with words associated to the faith. So you can see like, we got Bible verses in here. We got typical Christian words, things like that. And then I created another simpler one over here that's just, a couple triangles here. But this turned out really well, and he was really happy with it, and I'm happy for him. And so if you don't know him, by the way, go check him out. CJ Lucky Dope is his Instagram handle, as you can see up here. And then you can even see that I'm even wearing the t-shirt here. And I wish I've gained enough weight that this t-shirt doesn't fit me right now, but I still have it in my wardrobe in case I do want to lose enough weight. But this is probably the project I'm most proud of, just because I thought it came out so well as far as like, because I didn't create the album art. Some other person did. He asked me to create this, and that it just aligned really well, and that he sold a lot of t-shirts that way. So there are a lot of t-shirts out there of a graphic that I created, and so that was really cool. But this is where I tried to do something more 3D. So this is again the whole random kind of thing here, and this one turned out really awful. That's pretty bad now that I looked at. But what else did I create? So there he is again with his wearing the t-shirt that I created for him. But just a lot of really cool things you can do with really basic kind of shapes. I know there's more in here somewhere. So then you can do like, and I'm going to show you how I actually kind of created this. Not like directly show you, but show you the classes that I took to actually create this. And I actually have a book over here that I'm going to show here in a bit as well. And this book actually is not like a graphic design book, but it's a book about a specific graphic designer. So there's that. There's the same logo that I created for my dad with his stuff. I had created so again here's another great example of the pen tool, and this is my old Twitter banner. So this is a picture of me using that same pen tool. I was able to trace an outline of my face. And so you could see that this is because there are a lot more subtle lines in like the curvature of my face, that this is I spent a lot more time on this than I would have another more basic kind of image. And some of this is really cool, and oh my gosh, some of this is really depressing. Like, I was so thin. I've gained so much weight in the last couple of years. What else is in here? So I tried my own spin on a Diet Coke logo. I like the idea here, but I don't like that I put a shading on here now. The shading kind of looks a little bit off, but and then I'm trying to see. Oh, so here's another example of the pen tool where I thought it would be funny to create like a campaign kind of thing. So this is actually this is the I traced this off of a picture I took of this amiibo figurine here. That's kind of funny. I forgot that I did this. This is kind of cool. But you can see that he's kind of like holding up his hand here. And so I traced this all with that same pen tool. And so that's the reason that you would want to use the pen tool is for stuff like this. So I don't really use the pen tool as much anymore because the logos I create are very basic. Yeah, so, okay, I'm gonna close out of that. And I think I'm done showing things in here. Oh, so this was for a friend of my wife's, for their, like an idea that I created for their logo. And because they run like a machinery shop out of Danville here. And so I created this idea of like a gray logo, and I put like some spackling on it to make it look a little bit like rustic, and then like some like curvature shapes here. So I think it's uh, you know, it's interesting because this is this person here is the one that owns this company. She never actually asked to use it, and I wonder if it was because I did this for fun. I would have let them have this for free. And so if you're watching out there, furries, you can have this for free. Um, there's CJ. I forgot I did this for CJ as well. So that came out pretty well. And then, so this is another fun one that I did. That kind of just because I at one point I thought I wanted to call like my own company the Hunley Design Company, and then I kind of created this logo in association with that with these colors. And oh, so I'll show you some websites for like color combinations and stuff as well if you are curious. Oh, and this is man, there are a lot. Oh, I forgot that I actually did create this as a business card, like, and I still have these, and this is my old address, so don't worry about that. Um, wow, I am just going down a trip down memory lane. Oh, and here's another thing I did with the pen tool. So this is again, back when I used to gel my hair more. Like this is, and I actually did at one point have like this little notch right here was actually like a shaved line in my head, which looked really cool whenever I was younger, and I gelled my hair, but it looked ridiculous if I didn't gel my hair. So that's why I stopped doing that. And the pandemic hit. Oh, so you can see here side by side here. So I using this image of myself, I using the pen tool, I kind of generated this, and you can kind of see how I did this over here on my old computer. And then this is the book that I'm going to show, and then just a lot of other fun kind of projects. And then here's another pen tool. I'm just going on like a trip down memory lane with some of the stuff right now. So, okay, there's me and my dad. All right, so back to here. So let's talk about how you can take shapes like basic shapes to create other shapes, and this is a really important concept that I like now I think about all the time. I was even driving to the grocery store earlier and looking at some things along the side of the road and thinking, oh wow, you could really do some cool stuff if you with like this is just basically like circles and stuff. So let me use an example here. Let's say I wanted to create a leaf, like a leaf on a tree. The easiest way to so if you think about a leaf on a tree is kind of like got this shape. I'm gonna try creating the shape here of like this kind of shape. Maybe it's a little bit more symmetrical. So it's basically symmetrical down the center, and it's got like this kind of shape here, if that makes any sense. And so actually the one of the easiest ways to create that is you take one circle like this, boom, and let's make it green because this is going to be a leaf. So I'm going to fill this with a green color. It doesn't matter which green, that's fine. And so what then I do here is I copy this. So copy and paste is the same commands here as it is in any program. So Command or Control C, Command or Control V. So V, so I have actually pasted, you can see up on the right, I actually have two of these sitting right on top of one another because when you do a paste, it does the paste right in place, which is nice because then if you hold down the shift key and you want to move this around, then you can move it like an even 45-degree or horizontal or vertical line here. And so you can see that when I move this here, and you can see that it does auto snapping, that when I move this, like the edge of this circle is right in the middle of the other one and vice versa. And so I don't know if you can tell whenever I highlight both of these that the path in the middle here, this shape right here, it kind of shows that you can this is kind of the leaf shape right here. So the question is how do you actually create the shape? And so honestly, this is one of the you can do this in Affinity Designer, and I'll show you how to do it. This is actually easier to do in Adobe Illustrator because in Adobe Illustrator it actually has this really cool tool where if you highlight both objects like this, then and you click this, like I can't remember what the name of the tool is now, but if you just click on that, then you could just click each of these things, like click, 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 and you make 3 shapes out of it. Or you can to do this in Affinity Designer, you can see that there are a couple different like cutout kind of things up here. So you can see an add tool, subtract, an intersect, and an or a divide. And so let me just show, and by the way, vectors are free, meaning that if you want to alter something and make sure that you don't alter it, like, but you still want to make sure you, like, you have the original thing, copy paste it off. So that's what I'm gonna do over here. So I copied and pasted the same thing over here. So if I use this add tool, what the add tool is here is it basically, you can see that the paths went away, and that is because it created this as one single shape. So now this is just one big pea pod like shape here. So that is what the add tool does. So add tool is one of the big things that I use quite a bit. But if you wanted to, okay, yeah, if you wanted to just get the middle here, then you would do the exclusive OR tool. Or no, I'm sorry, it's the intersect tool. So the intersect tool, as you can kind of see by the shape here, is the gray parts are going to go away, but the piece in the middle is going to stay. So when I do that here, then boom, I have a kind of a leaf. And if I wanted to, again, make alterations to that, so I can resize this a little bit, I can turn it on its side. And then, like, let's say I wanted to put two side by side to kind of make a flower, then I'm going to do a copy and paste. So I just did a copy and paste. And then up here, you can see that there are different tools for mirroring or flipping. So I'm going to do a vertical flip here. And so you can see I got like this oh, that's kind of interesting how I kind of made this kind of cool star-like shape. But basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move this over holding in the shift key, and you can see that it puts these things side by side, and there we go. We kind of have two leaves kind of a flower almost, if you will. So and so you can, and there are lots of shapes you can build with this whole concept of putting shapes together. And so actually, if you're wondering, so it's been 3 or 4 years since I've created my personal logo. So again, my personal logo is, I need to get a better one for when I share my screen. So let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen again for a second. So my personal logo is down here in this corner, this thing right here. I created this like 3 years ago. And so let me see if I can recreate it. Sorry about that. I obviously spent way more time on that logo than I did anything else. So what I did, and I actually created by accident, and it was just like a happy kind of accident. So what I did is, start off with a circle, and okay, so what I'm going to do is go over to stroke, and then again, or my swatches, and remember I have a custom, oh wait, no I don't, not in this one. I usually do have like a custom color palette here of colors that I save for my personal logo, so you can see that'll be okay. So it starts off with a, can I pull this from another file? Do I have another file open that has this? Yes, right here. Let me go ahead and copy this over just to show you. It's really big. Okay, let's make this smaller. And again, because this is an object vector, that this resizes no problem while maintaining fidelity. So you can see that I've got like basically what I have here is a circle, a standard circle, and an upside down triangle. So if I go to the triangle tool, so triangle, and I'll make a little bit of a triangle here. And again, so don't worry about getting things aligned perfectly, because then you can with these snapping tools or magnet tools, as or is it called magnet tool? No, I guess it is called snapping here. Then it kind of aligns things for you. And so I'm going to flip this around. I could have done that with a different tool up here. I'm going to make this a little bit narrower. So again, I'm just holding down the command key right now to make it narrower, maybe a little bit shorter. And so this is one quirk specifically of Affinity Designer here, is that things start off as shapes, but if you want to actually manipulate the nodes of the shapes further, you actually have to do a convert to curves first. So that's what I'm doing here, is you can see this button convert to curves, and now I can alter this a little bit more manually. And so then when I select this shape here, there's another tool over here called the corner tool. And so what the corner tool is if I select all these nodes here and I zoom in, then you can see I can pull in these nodes, and it is creating a curvature around those particular things. So the head's a little bit smaller, head's a little bit closer, head's a little bit smaller. Okay. And so this is the part that I don't exactly remember, is how did I get the curve to look just fine? So I'm actually going to convert this to curves again to actually harden that up. So let's look at that with the selection tool. So you can see now it's got 9 curves, or I'm sorry, 9 nodes, and each of these nodes can, so this one has like a straighter line and then like a gentler slope here. This one's got like a sharper slope for both of these, and then vice versa. But the reason I did that is so then I can group these things together. So by selecting both of these and then doing a command G, G standing for group, then these two things are grouped together. But they are still their own separate vectors. So you can see off here on the right, that these are still their own separate vectors. And even with my original logo here, my original logo is you have the head, the center, and then curves on the outside. Actually, I need to clean that up as well. Okay, so what I did is I'm trying to remember again how so I ungroup these. Are those ungrouped? Okay, so I ungroup these. So you can see that right now it has no stroke on it. I am going to put a stroke on it, and I am going to align it to the outside. I'm going to align this stroke to the outside. So this is aligning inside. I'm going to align outside. So this curve, and let me actually just go ahead and change the color of the curve for now, just so you can really see that this is what I'm doing here. And let's make it a little bit thicker as well. So let's make this curve. I usually like to make my curves like an even, round even number. So I think 5 will be okay. And so what you can then do is you can take these curves and then you can actually extract them out from the shape as if they are their own shape. And so, because right now, let me deselect one. This is all one shape. It's just that that green part there is its own curve. So what I can do here then is I can select both of these, and there's actually no short key to do this in Affinity Designer. I don't know why, but if you go to Layer and then you go to Expand Stroke, now what it basically did was, okay, so I still have my circle here, but now it has no stroke on it. And let me go in here to show that it really does not have, well, it has a 0 stroke on it. It has no stroke on there. And then this is its own shape now. And so what then I could do here is I can take these two shapes and add them together as if they are their own shape. And then, so now they're all one big shape. And so this again is a little bit easier to do in Adobe Illustrator because then I could fill this in easily. But let's say, so I add another stroke to this, and I'm going to make it red just to make it like really clear. All right, so then I'm going to outline this to the edge there, and then I'm going to do a little bit more of that. Okay, so what now you can see that I've got this green shape now has its own red kind of pieces to it. So if I do that thing again of expand stroke, so you can see now this green piece, I don't really need this green piece anymore, and I don't really need this red inner piece, and I can't, and so this is a kind of a goofy thing, but sometimes like if you can't delete things, you kind of just go and delete the nodes by themselves. So I don't know how to delete that inner part otherwise. Same with the circle up here. I don't really need this, nor do I need this, nor do I, okay, that deleted all of it. But now you can see here, if I change this to gray, sorry, take away that stroke, then you can see that I have like one little like person kind of object with one of these lines around it. And so you can see here, that's basically what I did over and over for my logo here. And then for like to actually make it look like kind of like a maze, I would just like take pieces out of here and then kind of chunk it out. And so honestly, I didn't do this super great because I still don't really know how to do this. But what I did was I created a line, a straight line that matched the width of this thing, and then kind of just moved along and tried to make it as tangent to, or like 90-degree tangent to the curve as possible. But this is, if you really look at this close, my logo is not perfect because I did this myself. But you can kind of see this is the idea that I did here. I don't remember what size I made this. So I'm going to make, use the pen tool just to make a quick straight line like that. And I think it was a 5. So it's a 5, I think. Stroke, 3.5, 5, and I'll just show you what I did really quick. So that doesn't look right. That looks way too thick compared. Maybe it was 3.5, 3.5, 3.5. So this is one thing that you do need to be mindful of, is that when you scale like strokes like this, that it can make the stroke bigger. And so if you wanted to scale with the object as you increase that, then you just have to make sure that scale with side object button is selected. So basically what I did here was, and I'll go ahead, I'll convert this to, I'll expand the stroke on this. So layer, expand stroke. Okay, so you can see there I have a basic rectangle. And so what I did was, I rotated this a little bit, and this line is kind of a lot bigger than I need it to be. And then, so there, and then I selected both of these objects here and did just a complete divide. So what divide does here is it basically makes everything that I've highlighted into its own shape. So so this is a shape now, this is a shape, so this little like piece here is a shape you can see. And so I take that out, take this out, and you can see, boom, that I now have like the start of something in here. But actually, I didn't want to delete this particular piece exactly. And if I was, well, actually, sorry, I messed something up here because I wanted to do, all right, so I grabbed this. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So let me grab this shape here. I did undo a couple times there, so this is back to being one shape. So we'll do that, then I'll do that to put these two side by side. And then I'll grab one of these, do a divide, and then delete, delete, delete. And the reason for that is then I have kind of a foundation. If I were for like actually connecting like one layer out to the next, and so that's how I created my own personal logo here. And so in case you've ever wondered what my personal logo it is, and this was again created by total accident, is when I found out when I kept expanding the stroke like this, it made like sort of like this whole like almost like a cross section of a brain from like the top, and so I thought it fit really well with the whole motif of the two primary kind of blog posts I read today are obviously data science and machine learning, and then some philosophy kind of things. And so philosophy is kind of like a maze in and of itself. So I thought this worked really, really well, and I'm really happy with this logo that I created. And it was all by total accident. I was just trying to create like this person one day, and I sort of do this offset path kind of thing, and it created this whole thing for me. And now you see this pretty much everywhere. And again, so branding ideas. So you can see like it's kind of like a watermark in the background here, and then I got like a secondary kind of logo, and this one's really basic. This is really just a rectangle with a font that just says @DKHunley, and I'm pretty much @DKHunley over DKHunley.com. Instagram's DKHunley, Twitter's DKHunley, LinkedIn.com/DKHunley. Consistency. Okay, so that is. And so even with this Titanic boat here, and before I created the sinking version of it, so this is the original version. So let me go ahead and grab this version to see if I can show that this is really just basic shapes stitched together. So you can see that the most complex shape here is like the body of the ship, and even then that's not even that complex. So it's basically a rectangle, and I'll get rid of the fill color on this. So get rid of the fill color. It's a little bit thicker of a stroke, and I think the stroke is actually aligned to the center. So make it a little bit thicker and align to center. Okay, and then I would convert to curves, and then I would bring in the two. Oh, by the way, one thing I did not mention that I actually just learned today is if you hover, you can see that I'm hovering right in between the rotation little node there. Now I got these double arrow keys. You can do what we call a shear on this. So now you can see that I am shearing it to kind of like make it kind of fall over like that. But basically what I did with the shape here, or with the ship here, is I grabbed one node and I pulled it in like so, and then another node, pulled it in like so, and then I converted this to a curve. And you can see here that I want to make it more. So if you want it to be really like perfectly straight, then I did that. And then you can see I took this other node then. I don't remember exactly what I did, but basically so that's the most complex part of the ship. But then everything else, so this is another rectangle, and then the whatever you call these, the smokestacks, if you will, are basically other rectangles that are just tilted on their side a little bit, and then just evenly spaced. So that's another thing that is probably worth showing is even spacing. Is like, let's say, let me go ahead and delete this. Let's say I've created 5. Let me go ahead and create a couple rectangles. Just basic rectangles. So got 1, 2, 2, and then 3, and then 4. So you can see that these rectangles I just kind of threw out there that they're not evenly spaced at all. We'll kind of make it like this is pretty close, but they are not actually evenly spaced. So if you highlight all of these and you go up into like this little icon up here, this alignment icon, then you can align it all. Well, actually, let me show this real quick. So I got one up here, one down here. So let me go ahead and highlight these. You can have them all aligned by vertical. So they're now all aligned vertically. And then if you want to make sure they're properly distributed, then you can see that you have a vertical or a space horizontal distribution. So you can see when I select this, There was a fifth one. I must have had a fifth rectangle hiding in there. But you can see now they're all evenly spaced. And so then I can resize them appropriately. I can make them a little bit narrower, or maybe a little bit even taller if I want. And then I got 5 rectangles like that. And then again, highlighting them all, I can do, then if I wanted to like slant them, then I can do a shear. And so you can see that like the top and the bottom are still going to remain a perfect like horizontal line, but now I've got like 5 sheared lines. And then I can do, just looking at this right off the top of my head, if I select all these and then I make it a little bit smaller, and then I make it like a yellow, like a mustard yellow kind of color, then like this is starting to look kind of like a crosswalk. And so this is how I create the iconography for any of my artwork. So all this, so like this is a good example. This head right here, I can remake this head here pretty quickly. There are really just like 4 shapes to this head. So that here, let me make that a little bit. Oops. Let me make that a little bit bigger. So there are 4 shapes I see here. So you can see here there is a circle, there is a triangle for the nose, there's kind of a rounded rectangle here for like the chin area, and then another rounded rectangle here for the neck. So just to show you how I can do this really quick, and actually there is a rounded rectangle tool for Affinity. So here's the neck. Okay, and this is going to be bad because I'm trying to do this super quick, but usually I do a little bit more time. So this will represent like the neck, or the chin area, sorry. Then let's get a circle going. So circle, and again, if I hold down the option, oops, sorry. If I hold down the command key and the shift key, I can create a circle that is like kind of builds around a point. So why it is, I don't know why that made that yellow. Or white. Okay, so I can do that, and then find this is starting to look a little bit funky. Let's make this a little bit smaller, and then of course the triangle. So triangle here, make this triangle, and then I'm going to convert this to curves, and then I'm going to use my same curvature tool over here, grab all these curves, and then bring them in to round out that nose. And then again, so we got because you can see like there's some white space here because this is like its own. It's like, because if I wanted to go back in here and change the curves, I still can. So I can select this curve tool again, and I can select these nodes, and I can pull them in even further or pull them back out, either way. But so I'm going to convert to curves again here, and then take my nose, put it over here, and you can see. This isn't perfect because I just did this super quick, but this is basically the same shape that I've got over there. Yeah, and so you can see like this is all one shape now. These are like 5 different shapes, and again, so then I can take this and tool, select them all, and then I basically made more or less, this is all just one big curve now, and then I can change the color, or like this guy's got a bigger head than this guy. But that's basically what this is like just finding out, if you want to create basic icons like I do, is finding out like what, and so for inspiration, what I will do is I will just do a basic Google search on like what an object looks like. So I did one for a parking lot the other day. So I just Googled it, and it's got a car in there. So I just Googled car, not career karma, car. I don't know why it's selecting career karma. Car images, and you can see, there are actually, I tried to base mine off my Tesla, but it didn't work out super well. But you can see there are like curves to, or even like, if I were to just do car icon here, so you can see that, there are curves to, or like similar shapes to all these things. So I think I actually based mine a little bit off this one, and I did create mine from scratch. But basically you can see that there is another kind of rounded oval shape here, some more rounded rectangles here. The headlights are a little bit like different kind of circles, and then you got like another trapezoid like rectangle up here. And then putting these shapes together, you actually get something out of it. And okay, I think that's really all I want to show. So this is Affinity Designer again, and so again, the nice thing about these artboards is if I want to export something, then I go to File, Export, and then I can select different things to export. So you can do it by artboard, you can do it by the whole document or the workspace. So actually, if I were to create another live stream thing from my example here, what I typically do, the export short keys are, at least on Mac, are Command Option Shift and S, so Command Option Shift S. So then I can select workspace, not workspace, I wanted to select main. So main, and let's say export, and then I can export this as Titanic SageMaker or whatever. So I'll go ahead and export that to my desktop, and then you can see on the desktop here, it has created a PNG, which I can then use for my live streams or my blogs or whatever. And then so let me show, like, so even, where's my neural network one? I just did one for a neural network. I thought I did. I don't remember where I did it. Okay, so this is the one that I was just talking about, where actually this one's pretty bad, a pretty bad icon that I did, but basically we got a fancier oval kind of here, a couple rounded rectangles, some circles, and then more circles on top of that. Excuse me. And the reason this one is bad is because this one actually is not perfectly symmetrical. Oh, one thing I did want to show that I forgot to show is, like, let's say you have a circle and you kind of want to take a bite out of it, if you will, or if you have any shape and you want to kind of take like just a small chunk out of it. So I'll go ahead and create this circle, convert to curves, and then so let's say I want to make like almost like a Pac-Man like figure. So what I'm going to do, and this is not going to be perfect, is I'm going to use the node tool here. I'm going to add a point here. I'm going to add a point here, and then actually this is not going to work out as well as I thought. Well, let me change to a stroke to make it really clear. All right, so I'm going to go back to my node selection tool. So if I select this node and this node here, and let's say I want to get rid of this other arc around here. So you can see up here, there are these action things here. And so you can see I'm going to break the curve. So at the point where the curve meets is at this node tool, then you can see that I've actually broken it. So this piece is actually off on its own separate little planet right here. And so then you can do other cool kind of things with that, and if you want. And then so I've got like this weird kind of smiley face thing going on here. Actually, let me see if I can make it a smiley. So 1, all right, 2, 3. Oh man, that's bad. I should have just copied this so you can see in here. Now I've got kind of like this smiley face thing going on right here. Actually, that actually would make an interesting, like, if I was a dentist, maybe I like my last name was, I don't know, what is the last name that begins with the letter C? I don't know. And if like, then maybe I would have like this C and make this be a smile, something kind of clever like that. So cool ideas like that. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to show personally. Now, if you want, I do want to show some additional learning resources for you all if you decide that this is something you're really interested in, you want to learn more about. So the first one I'm going to show is the Affinity Designer the Affinity Designer crash course. And the reason I'm showing this one here is, so this is on Udemy. Udemy is really good. Let me go to udemy.com in general, udemy.com. Udemy.com is really good for just like a lot of different courses. But the problem with Udemy, I've noticed, is that it tends to recommend courses that are just, way too daunting. So let me pick out one for an example. So like this one here that's recommended as number 1 is an 18-hour course. And, I don't really, and this is probably going to teach you the ins and outs of everything to do with Affinity Designer. But if you just want to get up and going, like 18 hours is way too long. And so I'm recommending Brad Colbo's here for a couple of reasons. Number one is it's only 3.5 hours long. And then I also follow Brad on YouTube, and he's got other tutorials for things like Procreate, which is like a drawing kind of app. And so he does a really good job. And so this is like, and when I looked at the content for this specific course, because you can actually see kind of like the content here down here, it looks like it's basically showing the same kind of ideas that I did. So creating shapes, modifying them. Oh, we didn't even talk about text, but there are lots of cool things you can do with text. I forgot I was going to show inspirations for colors and stuff, so I'll remind me I will do that here in a second. Let me take another sip. Okay, and it's a cheaper course than some of the other ones. So you can see here, he's even got like a project on how to do some really basic stuff. So just transparently, I have not taken this course, but because I have taken other stuff by Brad here, it's an easy one to recommend. So that's to actually learn the tool itself. I'm sure there's an associated one for Adobe Illustrator if you really want. And then there's just this whole idea of developing your own design sense, or what you can do. And for that, there is no better recommendation I can give than Aaron Draplin. Aaron Draplin is a graphic designer. This is him right here. He's kind of a character. He's a really cool guy. And so this is the Skillshare platform. It's been a couple years since I've taken any of these. So he's actually put out some more, and I actually think I am going to reactivate my Skillshare so I can take some of these myself. I've taken, I think, 3 or 4 of these courses. But Draplin specifically, and let me stop sharing my screen for a second. Where's my thing? So Draplin specifically, he is known for. So this is his book that I have here. It's actually, that's why you can kind of see my books over here, kind of leaning over, because I usually have it on the end here. This is kind of like this is like a great coffee table book. This is kind of like a mixture of his own personal portfolio and like autobiography, if you will. So if we look inside here, then you can see. Well, here's just like a page of all these different logos he's done. Maybe one of the most famous logos that you might be familiar with is right here, the Patagonia logo. Aaron Draplin did the Patagonia logo. And then so that was just so I'm trying to find pick a page with actual text, because this is a really cool book. So this is like, you can see off over on here that this is like his life story, and he just does a really good job at explaining things that keep people interested. And so I love this book. This is one of my favorite books. Again, as a great coffee table book. I bought it on Amazon. And so you can see he's really known for thick lines, kind of more what's the word? Like some of those logos have like a retro feel, even if they aren't retro. So like, for example, like this one, my finger, where is it at? This one right here, this Red Wings Farms here, like that has like a retro feel, even though it is more modern. And so that's where, you just want to find a couple graphic designers that you like, and kind of try to emulate the things that they do. And so you can even see here, I was showing one of my logos that I actually got inspired by him he actually did something for himself. So Draplin Design Company there. So I love this book. You don't have to pick it up. But back to, let me share my screen again. Back to the Skillshare things. He's got a couple different courses, and you can see they're all kind of short for just, inspiration on how to do things. So like I'm trying to remember which ones I've taken. I'm pretty sure I took this one. Oh yes, I definitely took this one. This one was so helpful in understanding how to do customization with type. So you can see here, like, he's done some really cool things with type here. I think I did the circular design one, and I don't think I've taken any of these others because they're more new and recent, and I've just been focusing more on machine learning than graphic design. But but this one really is interesting to me, because I've always wanted to know more, because I know how to do a little bit of kind of like this rustic feel to it, but man, this one's probably really cool. So I might actually just reactivate my Skillshare subscription just for this, but I thought I'd show you a couple things. Now, as far as colors go, oh my gosh, I can't remember what website now I used to do that. I think it was called like colorpalette.com, or let me see, color palette. But the nice thing about I wonder what this one is, coolers.co. There are a lot of websites out there that kind of show, okay, so this one kind of does, like different colors that work well together. So you can see here like that there's all these different palettes, and explore trending palettes. So if you want to see like groupings of colors that work really well together, then you can see like that we can actually, like, this group of colors is, this is like a softer group. Oh, and that was the other thing I forgot to mention, is that like if you want to get a very precise color, then you just copy the hex code of that value. So you can see here, that's what this is representing. So the CDB4DB here is the hex color. So you can see I just copied that to my clipboard. And so if I wanted to change like the color of a stroke here, I just go and select the stroke, and then I go into color here. And oh my gosh, I don't remember where I do this because I haven't done this in so long. Double click. Okay, yeah, double click on like the color thing, and it'll bring up this whole thing here. And then you can see down here, I don't know why this is pretty bad, because it usually shows like this as hex, but this just says number here. So I'm going to paste this in here, and so and then I hit enter, and then you can see that it did not change that because apparently I did not have it selected. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, I just pasted it in, and it made these all caps for me. And you can see I got this exact purple color of this thing here. So again, This wasn't the website that I used, but this one looks good enough. But if you ever want ideas of colors that work well together, find one of these websites, and then you can see, oh wow, I didn't even think that a brown and a green could go together. Whatever, and you can see I even like there are different kind of palettes you could use. So I can't remember the website that I used to use because these palettes usually actually have names, and I wonder if any of these have names. So view palette. And then it's also got, because I think it's easiest to just use the hex values, but you can use the RGB or CMYK values. In case you're curious what RGB versus CMYK is, so RGB is more designed for like colors that will be used for screens, so like what for like web pages or apps or whatever. And then CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and I think K represents black. These are more colors that lean well more for print purposes, and I'm not very good with colors and printing because all my artwork is obviously digital, with the exception of the T-shirt that my friend CJ had created. So that is that. And then one last thing I wanted to show fonts, because you do have to be mindful of this idea that fonts are not free, or most fonts are not free. So in case you are curious, with my own personal stuff, I personally like to use a font called Nexa. So actually this bold text here is called Nexa Bold, and this is called Nexa Light for this lighter kind of stuff. And this is a totally free font. And actually, I'm pretty sure, so if you have followed other live streams, I'm pretty sure that Affinity, what do you call it? Oh my gosh, my brain is, I just had a total brain fart there. Oh, HashiCorp. These guys that I always talk about with Terraform or Vault and stuff, I'm pretty sure that they're also using Nexa, because this looks really familiar to me. Another thing to be mindful of with fonts, you can always just do free fonts, Google free fonts. I'm trying to see if I can remember it, because there was this website called Creative Block that used to have like really good collections of like nice fonts. So Creative Block spelled with a Q, free font. Okay, so Creative Block, boom, best free font. Well, maybe that it doesn't, because they used to maintain like list of these, but like I said, it's been forever since I've done it. So best free fonts. Let me just Google that and see. Okay, so basically you can go to websites like this one that I'm about to go here to, and it will show like different fonts that you can use that are free. Of course, there are paid ones, and so you can see here this Calfine kind of has like an old style like retro kind of feel to it. And so by the way, there, in case you were curious, like what is a serif font versus a sans serif font? So if this would be a serif font. So that the idea with the serif font is usually at the ends of the letters, it's got like some extra flair to it, so you can see how it kind of just comes out a little bit here. So that is a serif font, but a sans serif font does not do that. So let me see. So like I think this is kind of a sans serif font, but like so the sans serif fonts are really more like what I like to consider as gentle. So Helvetica is a sans serif font, but like Times New Roman is a serif font, if you are familiar with those. So you can see there's another serif font. But if you and then usually it'll like show like a link to actually download these fonts. So let me show you how to actually download a font, if I can find one that I like, that I know I'll use, because I don't want to just grab any. So that looks, I kind of like this Thunder one here. So I could just go and click this Thunder here, and then it's going to try to take me to an ad, and I'll just close out this ad. So added by fonts, 2 free fonts. Okay, so free fonts, Thunder, collect. Where is the download file? Collect. Oh, I'm gonna have to sign up for this. Well, so I know Fonts is free, Font here, and it's really easy to download stuff, but sometimes they don't have the best stuff. So you can select like a different kind of category you're looking for. So like, let's say you want to, here's some basic ones. So I personally prefer sans serif fonts. This is a nice font that I've used before, Lemon Milk. So let's download. So I'm just clicking download, and it's gonna download to my directory. And then in Windows or Mac, both of them have like a software program that manages all your fonts for you. So on Mac, I know it's called FontBook. I don't remember what it's called on Windows. So if I just go into my downloads folder here, and I'll pull this up. So this is lemon milk that I just downloaded. So these files that end in .otf here, I'm going to open all these at once. Those .otf, I can't remember what that stands for, but those are font files. So I'm going to open all these with FontBook, and then I'm going to install all of them. So it's going to install all of these fonts here onto this. So then if I wanted to then make use of it here in Affinity Designer, then I can make a text here. And I don't know why, but like this, it's been really goofy kind of lately with trying to create text like this. Okay, so then hello. Right, so you can see that. Oh, another one of my favorite fonts is called Avenir Next, which is a default font that comes with MacBooks. Why is it not letting me pinch to zoom? I'm trying to pinch to zoom right now on my trackpad and it's not letting me do that. Weird. Okay, so let me change the color of that to make it look a little bit easier to see. Okay, so hello, and then if I want to change the font on here, let's go to that lemon milk one we just downloaded. Lemon milk. Okay, there we go. And then we have a lemon milk font here, and I don't know why it's not letting me zoom. This is frustrating. Okay, so that's fonts, colors, learning resources, and that's really all I wanted to show today. So yeah, Cool Vetica, that's interesting. I actually kind of like that font, Cool Vetica. For you know, there's some obviously I drift toward Next for my blogs and stuff, or Avenir Next, but if I were to ever create a specialized logo again, I probably would use one of these more like custom fonts. So I think Cool Vetica might be good for something. I like how the T kind of curves up almost like a big U there. But that is and I was starting to create another logo here to represent because we did the deployment of the SageMaker API. So if you didn't see that, the replay is available on YouTube. So I was starting to create a diagram that kind of represents that a little better. I'll go ahead and delete that. And then that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and wrap up for today. So that is how I do graphic design. And so the stuff that I did is pretty basic. Obviously, you could go down the whole rabbit hole of doing really fancy things with curves and colors and gradients and things like that. But I hope this inspired you to, because I think that's a really underrated skill set, because it obviously will. All the stuff that I showed you, I don't think is that difficult to learn. Obviously, it's a lot easier to learn the machine learning. But you could do so many things with it. So even though I am not a full-time graphic designer, and I will not be a full-time graphic designer now, I can still use this skill set to create my own blog diagrams, or my own blog title cards, or the live stream title cards, things like that. So it's a really useful skill set. I would recommend it to anybody to add to your skill stack. So that is it for today. Let's go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate this. I hope you like this stream. I don't know if I'll ever do another graphic design live stream, because obviously I've got so much to do with machine learning and stuff that I think I'm gonna keep on with those. But I thought you'd all appreciate a little bit of a change of pace here with a little bit of a fun topic and with graphic design. So hope you all learned something. I am going to go play Halo Infinite now. That's why my Xbox controller is sitting right here, is because I was playing Halo Infinite earlier. So yeah, that's it for today. Hope you all have a great weekend, and yeah, thank you for watching. See you in the next one. That's why my Xbox controller